Hello, Simon. Good morning. Nice to see you again.
Hi, Kerry. Nice to see you too. Looking very bright and orange.
Oh, thank you. It's not so sunny today, so I thought I'd better put my own sun on this morning
I
instead. So yeah. So great
like that.
to have you here again. I don't know other people whether they've seen our previous posts about when we met in Bradgate Park with kids, dogs, and all sorts of things. I know we did a couple of posts about your history and what's brought you to where you are today. We did do quite an extensive interview, didn't we, Simon? But
We did.
unfortunately, the sound quality on that was such that it just wasn't possible for our lovely Dion, head of marketing and media, to overcome. So we thought we'd do a Zoom call today and have a little bit of a chat about your company, Professional Weirdos, which is so interesting, and just to share really with people and get it out there a little bit more about what it is you do and where it is you're going.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for the opportunity, Kerry. We had a good chat when we were in Broadgate Park, but it's a good opportunity for me to try and simplify what I was saying last time. I think I went on a bit of a waffle last time, so I'll be a bit more succinct this time. So yeah, it should be a good chat. Yeah.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about how you became to start Professional Weirdos. What was sort of the background to it?
Well, there's a long story. It's kind of more of a life story that goes before all of it, that adds a bit more context. But I'll skip that bit because the most important bit is my experience within the corporate world. I was working for Camelot, the National Lottery company. I got hired as a youth marketing consultant, essentially, alongside about 12 other young people. We were brought in to have like an influx of youth in the company, essentially.
Right.
I think over 50% of their staff had been there since inception, so I think 25 years,
Right.
which is great for the company. You know, it says that they're a good company to work for. People don't want to leave, etc. But it also says that perhaps they're not that innovative and they don't bring in new ideas a lot.
A little bit stale, maybe.
Yeah. So their idea of bringing in essentially an influx of young people was quite a good idea. And alongside the 12 other people, there were people who were graduates, people who had just left education, people who have been in the corporate world a bit, and I was one of, if not the only person from the startup world. And I naturally, because of who I am, but also because of my startup experience, I thought about things differently. And I had a slightly different take on how things should be done, slightly different take on how I like to get my ideas across, and various other things like that. And that put me in good stead, fortunately. It could have gone one way, could have gone the other. You know, it could have been fired, I suppose, for being different. But fortunately, it worked out for the best. And after about 3 months, I was fairly well known in the company, and that put me in good stead. And a position as brand manager came up, which was several layers above in terms of hierarchy. So I jumped.
Big promotion there, yeah.
Big promotion.
Yeah.
Which was a big honor, to be considered and then to be, offered the job as well. The role of brand manager was pitched to me as I would be looking after TV campaigns, marketing campaigns, all the creative side of things, everything that a marketer dreams of doing, essentially, with a big company.
Yeah.
And it was said to me that I was picked for this role because I thought about things differently, and because I was well in the company, and because of my startup, way of approaching things.
Mm-hmm.
And the role turned out not to be what it was billed as. A lot of the creative work, if not all of it, was done outside by agencies. And they would come back to me, that's the brand manager, and say, is this on brand? Is this not on brand, essentially? Is this the right yellow? Is this the right green?
Yeah. It wasn't quite what you were hoping it to be.
Don't get me wrong, their creative work was really good. Wasn't stuff that I would produce, perhaps, but I'm not knocking the creative side of things. I'm just saying that I wasn't involved in a lot of the creative side of things, and so the job wasn't what I wanted. And in that role, I also had to become a lot more corporate. So the stuff that had made me successful, in inverted commas, in terms of getting this role in the first place, I was no longer really encouraged to do. I was no longer encouraged to be this startup disruptor, essentially.
You're back to clearing the line.
Yes, and I didn't quite fit well with me, but I did the role for about 6 months. The first 3 months in any role, I always think is getting to know the role anyway. And then the following 3 months, I was just essentially doing the role. And it just wasn't the right fit. And around the same time that I was thinking of leaving, I got an email from a business partner. This is the bit where the life story comes into play.
Yeah.
I had a business. Yeah. I had a business before I went to Camelot, which I was at that point basically a silent partner. But one of my business partners emailed me and asked to buy my shares out from me. And at that point, when I was considering leaving Camelot, I jumped to the opportunity and said, "Yes, please, I'll take your offer."
Great timing.
Exactly, it was very good timing. So I sold my shares and handed in my notice at Camelot, which was a big relief. I was stagnating there. I'd had a great time. It was an honor to be part of this big company. It was a great badge to have, but it just wasn't the right fit.
Yeah.
So when I left, I had no plans about what I was going to do next. I wouldn't have left quite so quickly if I hadn't sold the shares.
No.
Because they gave
me the opportunity.
Exactly. And then I essentially spent the next 6 months or so just relaxing, having fun, exploring. I hadn't had a gap. Not that you have to have a gap year, but I hadn't had a gap year between education and going into the workplace. In fact, the two had merged. I'd started a business while I was at university, so my work life, started even before I finished uni. And then I didn't want to jump straight back into the job world. I also didn't know what I wanted to do. So I spent these 6 months having fun, exploring London, reconnecting with myself, essentially. Did a bunch of different things. I went on really random tours around London. I went on the London Loo Tour, which is a tour of all the public toilets in London, which I can highly recommend. Yeah, it was actually really good. Not to completely go away from the subject, but it's not just a tour of public toilets. It's a historical tour, so they tell you about the toilets that were around during the world wars. They were used for secret meetings and stuff. But it was basically things like that. And then I was having a catch-up lunch with a friend of mine. She runs a successful blogging school, like an online blogging school. She teaches people how to make money from blogs and stuff. And we were just chatting about what my next move should be, what my next career, what I should do next. And she said, she kind of looked up at me and said, "Simon, you're a bit weird."
And that was it, the penny drop moment.
And yeah, pretty much. I let her continue. I wanted to understand a bit more what she meant. But she basically said that, I think differently, and I've done things differently. And because of that, I have managed to achieve success. In maybe not necessarily in my terms, but when other people look at me, they go, "Oh, that's been quite successful." And she followed that up and she said, "There's value in that. There's value in the ability to think differently. There's value in the ability to be creative and to apply it." Essentially, she said, "If you can bottle that in some way, there's value to it." And that was kind of the eureka moment. And that's when I went off and did a bit more exploration, mainly into myself, to find out why I am this person, how I've turned into this person that thinks differently, likes to challenge the status quo. Because when I look back at my childhood, up to the ages of about 16, I was a bit of a goody two shoes. I didn't necessarily like rocking the boat. I was quite a quiet, shy person. But following a series of accidents, experiments, etc., I've now become this person who does like to push things and challenge the status quo. And so along that, from doing that research into myself and also reading loads of books, going to lectures, hundreds of TEDx talks, I've created a system essentially that helps other people. And I use this term in my business to unleash their inner weirdo. And that's essentially to get them to think outside the box a bit more, be a bit more creative, and most importantly, be confident enough to apply that creativity. And so that's what I do with Professional Weirdos. So I do that in a workshop basis.
Right. Okay. So what are your sort of books that you enjoy reading, or that you've read previously? What sort of had eureka moments for you when you're reading?
Oof, that's a very good question. I'm trying to think what the biggest ones were. Well, Seth Godin is, I suppose, a very well known person in the marketing world in general, but also the creative world.
Yeah.
When I didn't actually read his book until I set up Professional Weirdos, but when I went digging, he actually has books about being weird.
Yes. Yeah.
There's one called We Are All Weird, if I remember that title correctly. And he was just talking about why humans are weird, why there's value in that. Very similar things to what I'm talking about. So that resonates. What else have I read? Oh dear.
Put you on the spot now.
Yeah. I can see all the colours of the book, so I can't remember off the top of my head which ones.
Can't remember the title.
Well, you know what? It's not a book, but something that really inspired me in terms of my way of thinking is a friend of mine called John Buchan. He runs a company called Charm Offensive, and he does content marketing, essentially, email campaigns, cold emails, and he does things with a sense of humor. So it's all about using humor to sell, to negotiate and stuff. And a big thing that resonates with me in terms of the professional weirdo side of things is when people challenge him and go, "Oh, you can't use humor and be professional at the same time." And he says, and people do say that, people say you can't be funny and professional. You have to be. It has to be boring, essentially. And John quit back and said, "No, at no point does a CEO, for example, get his role and go, okay, no more time for smiles, no more time for fun." That doesn't happen. They're humans. No. Whenever, and it doesn't happen very often, whenever someone questions my professional weirdo side of things, being different, that's something that I always jump back to. It's we're all humans at the end of the day. You don't need to be boring just to be professional. And that's where the professional weirdo side of things come into play.
Brilliant. So when you go, when you do one of your sessions, how does that kind of transpire? How do people sort of contact you, and what is it exactly that you go in and do?
Best way to contact me is via email, and that's just simon@professionalweirdos.co.uk. You can check out the website. It explains a bit more about what we do, how we do it.
I love your website, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much. It's taken a long time to get there. I can be a bit of a procrastinator, and I've actually written something at the moment called Getting Started. This is a bit of a tangent. It's all about how to get yourself actually starting doing a task. I've written it from experience, what my mindsets were when I actually applied myself and got started, and basically to trick myself into doing things. That's by the by. In terms of what companies can look for in terms of professional weirdos, what we provide in terms of the workshops, the overall outcome I see is more open-mindedness in the workplace in general. A lot of so I've essentially built the business on the basis of my experience with Camelot, in terms of being more open-minded. A lot of people think they're open-minded, but when in reality, when you present them with the situation, they're very quick to say no to something, and that's not me poking the finger, because I'm the same. It's something that you have to constantly train yourself not to do.
Absolutely.
No is the default state, purely because as humans we want to escape danger, essentially, and no is the easiest way to avoid it. And so it's about helping people to see opportunities, be more creative. And when you develop this culture where people are not saying no as much, you will automatically become more confident to present ideas as well. And so there's kind of there's 12 steps. There's 12 core elements in the workshops. So we can spread that over 12 months. So we do a day a month, or I can condense it into sort of 3 days. But obviously with a 12-month, you get more of the stuff.
Yeah. So it gives people a choice then, really, doesn't it? Whether they just need something quick and intense to sort of liven everybody up, I guess, or whether they want something sustainable over a longer period to kind of keep the staff momentum going. Yeah,
exactly. And I've been on a lot of workshops. I keep referring back to Camelot because that's my biggest experience in the corporate world. But we did quite a few workshops, and they were good for the most part. I always think as long as I take one thing from a workshop, it's valuable. But they weren't oodles of fun, shall we say. It was a lot of talking and listening, and there wasn't so much applicable stuff straight away. the stuff that I do in the workshops, we get them going out into the office and applying it there and then.
It's quite interactive.
Yeah, very much so. It's about team building as well. Morale boosting. Oh, there he is.
We thought we might get through this without the dogs barking, didn't we, Simon?
We did okay. I don't know whether that's a good bark or a bad bark.
Oh dear. Sorry, the dogs have just been dealt with. Oh dear. So no, that's all great. And I think one of the other things, and I think like what kind of drew us together, I can't exactly remember it and exactly where our first contact was, but I know you were talking about doing things in schools as well. And with me home educating one of my daughters, my youngest daughter, there was the kind of that interest there, because I believe that the schools could be doing so much more with children. Teachers are great, schools are great. I'm not calling what they're doing. I'm just saying that there's so much more that could be taught in schools to make our young children have more of an entrepreneurial mindset, have more of I don't need to just work 9 to 5 all my life and, huge mortgage, retire at 65, die at 70, job done, pass it all down to the next line. It's that trying to get something new and fresh and inspiring out there, isn't it?
I think the biggest thing that draws me to the school side of things is teaching adaptability, essentially. Because while there can be value in the things they teach, science, maths, etc. But it's knowing that knowing how to apply it in various different aspects. Exactly. The world is changing. It's changed massively from when I was in school. It's probably changed massively since my parents were in school. And the one thing that keeps people ahead is their ability to adapt to situations. And schools from who I've spoken to and from my own experience, they don't teach the mentality side of things.
No, absolutely not.
They spoon feed, and I think it'd be really valuable to be able to teach kids how to be adaptable, and how to apply themselves in different scenarios. And a lot of the stuff that I teach for Professional Weirdos can be applied to this. So I'd love to be able to roll out similar stuff with schools, and give talks, or run workshops about Professional Weirdos, how we do things, how we can get kids to think differently, think outside the box, be more creative, and get the most out of their school experience as well.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important. And and I've said to you, if you're down this way, I'll come along and join you if you're doing any schools over here. Yeah. I do think that part of it is huge. And the same, like you say, in the corporate world, it's so many people sit inside a box all day, every day, don't they, all of their life, and there's just so much more that you can be doing. So so thank you so much for coming and joining me today. And I hope everybody else has found this really, really helpful and useful. I think what Simon offers is something very different, something very inspiring, and just generally a really, really great product. So thank you so much, Simon, for joining us today, and hope to speak to you again very soon.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Kay. Really enjoyed chatting. You always provoke good. You always provoke me with good questions, which make me think. And that's always valuable. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.